We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Styles McKenzie helping you make those rooms sing. Today's style tip. When it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild, like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Arr, fierce. This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
The new Wegovy pill is now available through Weight Watchers. Powerful GLP-1 results in a simple pill at the lowest price available. And with Weight Watchers, you can get doctor support and personalized nutrition programs. See if you qualify at WeightWatchers.com. Ad not reviewed or approved by Novo Nordisk.
You're listening to the Cruise Tips TV Unplugged podcast. New Zealand is one of those places that people describe with words like beautiful and bucket list. And I don't think any of those words actually prepare you for what it feels like to be there, because New Zealand isn't loud, doesn't perform for you. It just kind of exists. And somehow the land and the people make their way into your heart. I experienced New Zealand by cruise, moving port to port through landscapes that felt unreal, and meeting people who were warm without trying, and taking excursions that didn't feel like tourist checkboxes, but real windows into the country. Welcome to Cruise Tips TV Unplugged. I'm your host, Sherry, and we invite you to join our cruise-loving family as we travel the world creating cruise videos and vlogs. In this podcast, we talk tips, tactics, and strategies to help you make every cruise your dream cruise. Hello, Mr. Cruise Tips TV. I'm home.
Yeah, it's good to have you back.
You've
been gone forever.
I was only home for 7 days in the month of January. We had the Carnival Legend cruise and then this Discovery Princess unexpected and kind of last-minute adventure to New Zealand that was incredible. But I am glad to be home, and I missed you.
Yeah, you're crossing a lot of things off your bucket list.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm not sure Carnival Legend was on my bucket list, but it certainly was fun. But this New Zealand trip, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, my bucket list is not going down like yours is.
We're going to have to work on that.
Yeah.
Well, in this episode, I'm going to take everybody kind of port by port through the New Zealand itinerary, talk about what I did. This was a press trip. What surprised me about the cruise in New Zealand, what kind of lived up to the hype, and then also my honest thoughts on the ship, because when you're going somewhere like New Zealand, how you travel there really matters. And I think there's some pros and cons to traveling by ship. So my hope is that if people are watching this and New Zealand is on their maybe list or their someday list, or like we've been saying, kind of the bucket list, I really think that this episode is for them. And maybe people who have never considered New Zealand, maybe this will kind of impact you a bit. Oh, and also, can we talk about your most recent podcast exploits, shall we say, while I was gone?
Yeah, we can spend a little time on that. I mean, the main thing to know is that I did something special. I know I need a little bit of work on it. So think of this as kind of like the beta model for what is hopefully to come later. I need to work on things like enunciation and stuff like that. But I'll get there. At least I hope I'll get there.
Well, it was a great surprise. And for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, you started a new storytelling series called Alaska Lore and Legends?
Yes, it is.
It is such a fun, historic and storytelling look back at some of the ports that we visit in Alaska. And maybe we don't think back to the very storied and sometimes brutal histories of these areas, and you kind of bring it to life through nonfiction and a little bit of fictional storytelling, but mostly nonfiction, right?
Most of it is nonfiction, yeah. In fact, the goal of it was to bring more to the Alaska experience, because it's a big part of what we do. Alaska is a big part of what we do. And while you were gone, I was thinking about different ways that I could contribute. And I kind of looked back and tried to discover what interests me. And I've always been a history buff. And I thought, well, Alaska is just rife with all kinds of lore and legends. And I thought, well, I'll give it a try. And, I like I said, it needs work. It's rough. But, if you can be patient and tolerant, then it might be worth a listen.
I think it's wonderful. And if you're the kind of person who enjoys kind of a soft story in your ear while you're driving and you like to be able to maybe have like drift away and kind of visualize something while you're maybe cleaning the house and listening to podcasts, I think this is for you. Also, if you're an Alaska lover or you're going to Alaska, I think this will be something that you can appreciate. And it might, if you've been there before, you might then sort of envision where you've been. Like your episode that's coming about Skagway has some really interesting history about Skagway. And when I first listened, I thought it was fictional. And I looked at my son and I was like, did Dad just make this up? And he's like, no, Mom, this character is real. And I was like, wait, what? So have fun with it, friends. Let it be an escape for you. And please let us know your honest thoughts. We've already gotten a little bit of feedback from people. Most of it's been really positive, but one person said like, oh, I kind of want more of a history lesson. So we'll try to work history into it. And I know you're working on getting some more sound effects in there and stuff, but it's fun.
Well, like I said, the idea is to bring something more to the Alaska experience, because when you visit, especially by cruise ship, it can feel kind of superficial or rushed, and you're just kind of scratching the surface of what's there. And in fact, you're seeing what the tourist people want you to see.
Right.
And I wanted to go beyond that, so you kind of have this like inside knowledge.
Right.
You can look around and say, hey, I know why that's there.
Yeah.
Or I'm standing in the place where something happened.
Yes.
That type of thing.
And to find out what that something is, listen to the next installment of Alaska Lore and Legends.
I'm working on it.
I love it. All right. Well, we're going to hit New Zealand now. We're going to talk about the main topic of this show. I'm going to give you guys a port by port breakdown of everywhere that I visited in New Zealand, exactly what I did there. So I took a red eye from Dallas Fort Worth direct to Auckland in New Zealand. For those of you who aren't familiar, Auckland is a big city on the North Island of New Zealand, and it's a beautiful, beautiful city. Nice airport. Immediately when you arrive, you definitely will feel the Maori impact, the native impact there, and it's so interesting. There's such a beautiful connection with the native people, with the Maoris. Everywhere you go throughout New Zealand, you're going to feel that is a part of your experience there. And I had a pretty good flight. I flew over on American Airlines. Definitely not easy to sleep on an airplane, as we all know. So that's always a challenge for me. But as they go, it was pretty good. Definitely don't recommend American Airlines for the best long haul flight food or anything like that. But it was a good price. It was a comfortable seat, and I had a great seatmate and an empty seat between me. So I certainly can't complain about that. But landed in New Zealand, and I had a 1-night stay at sort of really close to the port. I stayed at the Pullman Hotel. It's a beautiful hotel, a bit older but beautiful, within walking distance of the actual cruise port. And when I got there, I arrived at like 9 in the morning. And I knew I had to try to somewhat stay awake until the evening, or I was going to have a major jet lag problem. But having gotten no sleep on the plane virtually, I decided I was going to do a little nap strategy. So thankfully, when I got to the Pullman Hotel in Auckland, after a very short Uber ride from the airport, they let me check in. So I was checked into my room by 11 a.m. and I said, okay, I'm going to go live on Amazon and talk to everybody about some of the long haul flight essentials that saved me on my cruise. While it's fresh in my mind, I want to lay everything on my bed and show everyone my travel pillow and all the other stuff I use. But then I decided I was going to take a 2-hour nap. So I did just that. I passed out from about 12 to 2. And then I said, okay, that's it. You're done. And you're leaving the hotel. So I got on my sneakers and a sundress because it was hot. It's summer in New Zealand right now. Remember, they're on the other side of the world, different hemisphere, right? So I got on my sneakers and my sundress and I traipsed myself down to the waterfront, and I literally walked for over 4 hours. It doesn't get dark in Australia and New Zealand right now until pretty late. So we're talking after 9 p.m. So I had zero qualms about doing that. Also, New Zealand, you guys, so safe. I knew walking out of that hotel room that I was going to be perfectly safe. So I walked down to the waterfront and I did a little bit of shopping. I went to H&M and got myself a few new dresses and just walked around the beautiful area. And then I got a little closer to the water, and to my surprise, the ship was already there. The ship that I was getting on the next day, Discovery Princess, was sitting beautifully right in front of me, like a big old jewel in the water. And I was like, wait a minute, what happened? Why is it here a day early? Well, it turns out that the people, I joined this cruise, you guys, mid-cruise. So this cruise actually started in Sydney, Australia, and everyone had already been on for like 7 days for the crossing. But sadly, there was some terrible weather and there was a natural disaster in Taronga, New Zealand. They had a slide that actually killed, I think it was something like 6 people at the time. Devastating, terrible, so sad. Many people on the cruise ship actually knew people that passed away. But because that happened, that tragedy happened, the ship came to Auckland a day early and spent 2 days in Auckland. So I still wasn't able to get on the ship early. There was someone else in my cabin at that time. So I just enjoyed Auckland on my own, kind of did some solo wandering, shopping, and then went back to the Pullman Hotel, had a beautiful dinner, and crashed out. I was definitely ready for bed by like 10 p.m. and I got a pretty good night's sleep. And the next morning it was time to board the ship. But what I didn't know was that instead of boarding the ship, that the Princess Cruises team, the Australia team, the wonderful Alex, and Mike, who runs another division of Carnival over there, he runs the whole destination division, they had planned a special surprise for us that day off ship. So instead of getting on and enjoying Discovery Princess, they said, no, we're going to take a ferry for the entire day. And we're going to take you guys to a special place called Waiheke Island. And they say it just like Waikiki or Waikiki, right? When you think of Waikiki, they pronounce it like Waiheke. And I was like, what is this place? I've really done very little research because I didn't know we were going to do it. And this was such an interesting start to the day. So I basically put my bags down in the cruise ship, on the cruise ship, went through some kind of customs or immigration, and then we all departed and we got on the ferry. And here's where I learned one critical tip about New Zealand in the summer that you're going to see repeated through my content. You're already seeing it repeated through my content on Instagram. And that is that, you guys, the sun in New Zealand in the summer months, so yes, January, is so powerful. You could potentially burn in minutes. And I had many people alert me to this. Honey from Cruising with Honey sent me a DM and she's like, honey, you have got to get SPF if you didn't bring it. Go to the store now. So I did that, but I also noticed that right when I got onto the ferry, they had, and I have never seen this on a shore excursion before. This wasn't even a shore excursion. It was just a ferry. They had a giant, think of like a Costco-sized SPF 50 with a huge pump on it, just publicly available for anyone to apply, sitting at the counter. And people were doing it. There were people applying it to their heads, their faces, their legs. So I slathered myself in SPF 50. And that became kind of a routine throughout this cruise, is that anytime you would land on a boat or an excursion or a destination, the zip lining we did later in the day, another giant Costco-sized SPF sitting on the counter that you just really would be unwise not to apply. I kind of had a little bronze tan by the end of the first day because of it. So something you probably never thought about for, your travels to New Zealand is that the sun is fierce. They claim that they have a very particular hole in the ozone above their area. And that's why. I'm not sure exactly what the full details are, but I had several people tell me that that was the case. So Waiheke ended up being this amazing sort of soft landing into New Zealand, but it was also a very high adventure and exhausting day because after we took that ferry over to Waiheke Island, we were greeted by a private van driver. She was wonderful. Her name was Helen. And Helen held up a map and said, this is what we're doing today. And she said, you're going to start off at an olive oil orchard, and then we're going to take you ziplining. Then we're going to hit up a place for lunch that is a winery. Then we're going to go to 2 more wineries. You guys, one of those things alone could have been a full shore excursion, but we started at 9 a.m. and I don't think we got back to the ship until 5. So we started off at this incredible olive oil property called All Press, and we got to taste the most beautiful extra virgin olive oil prepared with care and learned all about like what makes real extra virgin olive oil, like what constitutes extra virgin. The shelf life actually impacts whether or not it's extra virgin, the type of bottle that it's in is critical. So many things, and it was absolutely delicious. So you better believe I bought the smallest little can I could of it that would fit in a shoe and come home safely in my bag. But that was a delicious and beautiful start to the day. Then we went off to, I think it was called Eco Zip Tours, to what I thought was going to be kind of a soft and fluffy zip line. I'm thinking, okay, well, you're zip lining around the country and over some vineyards in New Zealand. How thrilling and daring could it really be? Like, oh, it's only 3 zip lines. Oh my goodness, you guys. So we arrive at the zip lining output, and all the guides are like students mostly from Dunedin and all around New Zealand who are basically summering on their break there and working at the zipline place. And they geared us up in the usual safety gear. So much fun. And we got started, and they said there's going to be 3 zip lines, and there's no brakes on the zip line. So you just kind of fly into the end. So that first zip line was pretty fun and intense. And it was fast, you guys. It was screaming fast, like the kind where you're ziplining, you can hear the kind of the whine of the harness against the wire above you. And I was shocked. I was like, wait a minute, that was the slowest zip line. So that was number 1. Number 2 got even faster. And number 3 was the longest and fastest of them all. And it was super thrilling. So if you ever get to go to Waiheke and you are an adventurer, I highly recommend that you go ziplining. Then we did, I forgot what they called it. I think they called it like a jungle walk. They said at the end, you'll have a jungle walk back to the camp. Okay, no, folks. This was an intense, like 45-minute hike all the way back up the hill, because you'd zip line down the hill. So if a New Zealander ever invites you on a gentle jungle walk, know that it's actually more like an intense hike. We're talking equivalent to the Damahagua Falls hike that I've told you guys about before. So now we're all sweaty and we're all full of life because we've had this amazing adventure. But it's time to go have lunch, and we're all thinking, oh my gosh, we're also, you feel kind of like you did something sporty and you don't want to go to this elegant winery, but we pulled it together and we were driven to this beautiful property called Tantalus Winery, where they make small batch, beautiful wines. And we had the most lovely lunch. And this is where I had suspected that the food in New Zealand was good the night before at the hotel, when I had about 42 different colors on my plate of vegetables and fruits and beautiful things. But then when I sat down at Tantalus and had this 3-course lunch served to me, I realized that I was going to be in for an absolute treat with the food. It is so pure. It is so close to the land. I ordered this incredible goat cheese and beet salad as my main entree, and you guys just have to go look at the photo on Instagram. It will blow your mind. The cheese plate that I ordered, just the look of it, the beautiful flax crackers it was served with, the colorful tomato salad someone ordered that was served with like some kind of a little liquid ice cream poured on top. Unbelievable, so fresh and so veggie forward. Beautiful stuff. So then we visited 2 more wineries and learned all about the wine culture on Waiheke. It is a huge thing. This wine region makes some very unique small batch wines, and every single winery has a beautiful story and, some limited edition special wine. So that was exciting. And just being on an island is kind of interesting because the energy is very different there than Auckland. You felt like it was much more removed. And we heard that the locals who live there, the people who live there, they all have their own septic. There's no universal sewer. There's no universal water. So they all get excited when it rains because they're collecting water in tanks. So in a way, it's very raw and removed from the hustle and bustle of Auckland. But yet you can look over the bay and see the skyscrapers. Such a beautiful place. If you get a chance to go to Auckland, please, please take your time and get yourself to Waiheke. And I think that this day is when I really had the realization that New Zealand just doesn't rush you, especially if you're in a place like Waiheke. You really have to learn how to embrace slowing down, being present, and being with the people that you're with. It's hard to describe, but it's one of the most beautiful things I think about traveling there. And it was this wine country. Maybe you've been to places like Napa and Sonoma that are kind of snooty, pretentious, and also extremely expensive to visit. This wine region is the opposite of that. Relaxed, unpretentious, surfer vibes kind of in a way, and just so grounded, so not flashy, and just kind of like a lifestyle to be there. So yeah, so that was Waiheke, that was Auckland. And then it was time for me to settle in a little bit on the ship because we were going to be pulling away from Auckland. And by the way, friends, the sail away, as you pull off that dock in Auckland and the cityscape kind of disappears into the distance. It's a really dramatic and beautiful sort of combination of dramatic sky and really pretty skyscrapers that come all the way down to the water. It almost reminds me of a little bit of a place like San Diego, where it's big city, but it's more coastal than big city, and it makes for a great sail away. So I got settled into my room. I was in a balcony cabin on deck 17, which is way, way, way high up on the ship. And my YouTube video has already been filmed and will be coming out soon. You guys will see more about the secret little location I was in. But if you want to cheat and go directly to Instagram, I have already posted a room tour of my cabin there with my secret location that you can kind of check out. So that was the first day. Next, we moved on to our first port of call because we were on the cruise now. We were rolling, enjoying Discovery Princess. And the next day we had an early call in a beautiful little place called Picton. Picton is a part of what they call Marlborough. I think I'm saying that right. Not like the Marlboro Man, but like Marlborough with a GH on the end. Wine country. So again, more wine country. And on this day, we were going to visit a pearl farm. And we were going to take beachcomber cruises out to the pearl farm. But first, we walked to this adorable little town, this little waterfront. Picton is like this postcard, perfect, teeny tiny coastal town. You can go to one of the many cafes and have a coffee. You can go have a toasty. I had to ask my Australian journalist friends, what's a toasty? And they're like, honey, it's just a grilled sandwich. So I quickly learned what a toasty was. And then we stepped foot on the Lady Anne, which you can also see on Instagram, a beautiful, kind of like a fancy motorboat, but not a yacht, and motored out to this incredible pearl farm. And along the way, we're just seeing all of this untouched coastline. If you look way across the bay, I think you could see, I'm trying to remember what city it was in New Zealand. I forgot. It's not Auckland. It's the one south of it, and it's just escaping me right now. But anyhow, you could see sort of way off in the distance, one of the big cities. And then we touched down at the Arapawa Pearl Farm, which is run by a family that's actually from the central coast of California, very near where we used to live. These people actually came from Morro Bay, which is a divers, the whole central coast of California is a divers paradise. They used to dive in some of the areas that we used to snorkel in. So I immediately connected with them with the California connection. That was so neat. And we're just wowed by what they were doing out here. They're farming pearls in a totally sustainable way. They've created this big wooden outdoor shack or building that has this beautiful way of creating and reproducing pearls out of abalone. So not only do they sell these beautiful pearls, but they sell the abalone shells. And this is where we started learning how much sustainability is very different in New Zealand. You think about sustainability and you always think it's related to some to a movement or to being a greenie or what. And it's just not. It's just part of the lifestyle there. Everything that these people do is to care for their land, to make more of their land, to actually be able to run businesses off of their land. But it was so incredible how intimate and educational this day felt instead of it being touristy. Now, this is absolutely an excursion that you can book if you're going on a Princess Cruise. You want to look for the Pua Pearl Farm excursion, and you're going to do exactly what I did for the day. There's a few surprises I don't want to spoil. So book it. You will love it. But you're going to then suddenly become as interested in protecting marine life as New Zealanders are. They are obsessed with protecting marine life, and it is so fascinating. They also, gosh, their coastlines are just so pristine and clean. You really feel like you're, 200 years in the past. It's amazing. Our next port of call was Christchurch. Now, when you see this on an itinerary, it's actually called Littleton. So Littleton is the name of the port town, but most people go somehow into Christchurch or through Christchurch to go on an excursion. And this is where a lot of people go for a Lord of the Rings filming experience. And that's exactly what we did that day. Now, if you're not familiar with Christchurch, Christchurch actually had a series of very terrible earthquakes. I want to say it was in 2010 and 2011. They had some very serious ones and they had to do a lot of rebuilding. So you're probably going to learn quite a bit about those earthquakes when you visit the area, but they had kind of an earthquake sequence over a period of 2 to 3 years. So the first one was a 7.1 that struck early in the morning and it caused a lot of damage and some injuries. But then 6 months later, they had a second earthquake that was a 6.3. And this one is a lot closer to Littleton. So even though it was a lower magnitude earthquake, the intensity of it was measured to be one of the strongest ever recorded globally in an urban area. And you guys, I believe that it killed 185 people. So this is a big part of the history. And so is the rebuilding of the area. So prepare to learn a bit about that if you do visit that area. But our goal for the day was to go out and visit some of the Lord of the Rings landscapes. And so if you are a fan of Lord of the Rings and you've ever heard of Edoras, Edoras was built on this little mini mountain out in the middle of what feels like nowhere. And even if you're a non-fan of Lord of the Rings, I can tell you that a tour like this, you would so appreciate just the storytelling and also the scale and the setting of the beautiful area that you are going to visit. And the first thing that occurred to me is just how, when you start driving around New Zealand, just how vast it is. It's big. There's so much on the coast and there's so much on the interior, but you could go through so many different types of climates and microzones along the way. And that's what we did that day. We took over a 2-hour ride sort of inland to where Edoras was filmed and learned about how they built a set. They built Edoras on a mountain, but they made it so that it could be removed without a single trace of harm to the land. And of course, as we know, that is very important in New Zealand. And that was just as fascinating as seeing the set itself. So we got there and our guide held up these pictures and he would hold them against the landscape and you'd see the actors on this card. And then you'd picture that scene happening there. He'd be, this is where this happened. And this was in movies 2 and 3. And it was just so much fun. It's also, you guys, it's not gimmicky. This is, you're going to feel like you're standing inside a movie, but even if you have no interest in Lord of the Rings, it's really cool. And I think it's something that anyone could appreciate. I know my husband and son would love it if they had gone. My son would probably be like, I remember that scene. I remember that scene. It'd be more meaningful if you had been there. But on the way back, we also learned about how the gentleman who runs these tours is actually trying to put together a protection plan along with Princess Cruises to protect a species called the crested grebe. And what you find visiting New Zealand is a lot of these businesses have partnerships with one another, and they have partnerships with Princess Cruises as well. Princess is running something called Local Partnerships down in New Zealand, and it's a huge part of the culture. And they give back, you guys, to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars to these businesses who are oftentimes directly trying to save a particular species. And they will tell you on the tour, thanks to Princess Cruises giving us this much money, this particular animal that you're looking at right now is here. It exists. It is not extinct because of Princess's contribution. This is a big deal. And this is something that they sort of struck this partnership several years ago, and it has been super successful. So that was a real highlight to learn about the crested grebe as well. Then our next day was a visit to Dunedin, and I was starting to get very curious about Dunedin because I kept hearing it was a really cool university town. And then when I got there, I realized that there's a lot of Scottish history here. In fact, it was Scottish settled. They call it the Edinburgh of the South. And it is so cool. The natural landscape here and all of the architecture is just fantastic. And this is a place I could see myself going back and spending a few days and really exploring more of the area, because I felt like we just sort of drove through Dunedin. But in Dunedin, we did an excursion that you can book this through Princess Cruises, called the Nature's Wonders Wildlife Tour. And this was, without a doubt, for the group of journalists that I was traveling with, this was one of the most emotionally impactful excursions. So what you're seeing here is you're seeing this man's 700 acres of land that he bought, just like this is going to be, this is going to be a land that I develop. But what he's chosen to do instead of develop his land is he has chosen to keep humans and predators completely away from all of the animals that are here. So you got to go watch the video on this, you guys, and got to go watch my content. I don't want to spoil it all, because I know some people want to go to New Zealand and be a little bit surprised. But suffice it to say, you will see things that probably bring you to tears. Even the most stoic of the gentlemen that were with me on this one, I kind of looked over at them and on occasion saw them, wiping the corner of their eye. It was an absolutely beautiful thing to see this wildlife in its natural habitat. And someone actually said, it's like a reverse zoo. Like, how you go to a zoo and things are in cages? Well, the funny thing is the humans were kind of in the cages. They had like these areas that we could walk along the coast and see the animals, but we were caged off from them. So if you're looking down and seeing, a certain type of wildlife in the water, you were spectating it, but they were in their natural habitat, and we felt we were kind of like in a little cage. It was really funny. Everybody was kind of joking about it. But again, a really interesting tour. It's called Nature's Wonders. Go meet Perry, the owner, and his beautiful children and grandchildren who run the tours. His granddaughter drove the off-road vehicle that they have a funny name for them in New Zealand. I can't remember what they call them, but if anybody knows what they call those off-road vehicles in New Zealand, send me a DM. But this one is going to move you, and you're going to need to load a lot of film in your camera, as we used to say back in the 70s and 80s. Obviously, it's all digital now, but be ready, because this is a fun one. And it's also a wonderful excursion with children, grandchildren. Take the kids here. Promise me you'll take the kids. It's magical. All right. Next, guys, I think we're going to make this a two-parter, because I want to cover the last quote-unquote place we visited, but I think I want to do a review of Discovery Princess itself on a separate episode, because I think that it deserves that. Even though we did Discovery Princess in Alaska, I want to talk to you guys about the ship, the food, the room, and a couple of special experiences that I got to have, as well as the entertainment. So let's talk about Milford Sound, our last port of call, and then next week on the show, we're going to talk about Discovery Princess and the New Zealand experience and how the ship is Aussified, as they like to say. So when I got the invitation to go to New Zealand, the place that I was most excited to visit, the spot that I saw on the itinerary that had me welling up with tears, as many of you saw when you saw my live stream announcing this, was a place called Milford Sound. And Milford Sound is located in Fiordland, and Fiordland is made up of all of these different sounds. It's kind of this coastal area. The closest thing I can think that it reminds me of is to like all the glaciers that you might go to in Alaska. You know how when you go to Glacier Bay, you visit multiple glaciers? Well, this is like Glacier Bay without the glaciers, but with a different type of scenery and wildlife. So this is a scenic cruising day. You will go through several different sounds, and if all goes well, Milford Sound will probably be the culmination of your day, because it is the best, the most dramatic, and the most beautiful area. And the nice thing about this, at least for us, is that we were scenic cruising literally all day. It was like 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Imagine going in and out of these dramatic sounds all day, being able to enjoy it on the decks. The interesting thing about it was the weather changed by the minute. If 1 minute I was wearing a sundress in the morning, and then I was wearing my Alaska cruise gear, raincoat, scarf around my neck, beanie on my head. It was freezing outside. The wind would whip. Very moody, very, very dramatic. You'd have waterfalls. You'd go around a corner and see a waterfall that would be there for just a few moments, and the ship would flip around for you to see it, and then it would disappear. And much like the glacial viewing experiences in Alaska, there is a silence and a scale and a perspective that kind of comes over you. In fact, Milford Sound is the moment on the cruise where everybody just stops talking. You are out there on the open decks, and very much like a glacial moment, it's just almost dead silence. And it is one of those things that stays with you. It will make you feel small, but in the best possible way. And if you get a chance to go to Milford Sound, I don't know anyone who would tell you not to. Please, please, please get out on the open decks and make this a day where you've saved some energy to be out in nature, because it is stunning. And with that, friends, that is a wrap on my port by port experience. This cruise really did get under my skin in the best possible way. It changed me. It made me feel lighter, more present, and so appreciative of the lifestyle in this area of the world where people are, life seems a little simpler and a little bit more grounded to what's right in front of you. And I think that's so beautiful. So if you're thinking about New Zealand, book it. And we'll see you next week to talk about Discovery Princess. Until next time, we'll see you on the high seas.
Thanks for listening to Cruise Tips TV Unplugged. If you like our show and want to know more, check us out at CruiseTipsTV.com. You can also find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram by searching Cruise Tips TV. We'd love if you'd leave us a review wherever you're listening to this podcast, subscribe to the show, and tune in next week. Until next time, we'll see you on the high seas.